If you've considered using Squarespace for your website, or if you're already using it, you've probably heard about the two different Squarespace versions, 7.0 and 7.1. If you know anything about those two versions, you're probably here to learn how to actually upgrade from 7.0 to 7.1, which is the newer version. Now, there's a ton of reasons why you might want to upgrade from 7.0 to 7.1, or even downgrade from 7.1 back to 7.0. The two versions are very different and they both have their own pros and cons. But this video isn't about the pros and cons and the differences. It's also not about why you shouldn't move. If you are just starting to think about it and you haven't actually looked into those pros and cons of changing, I highly recommend you do that first before you dive in. Moving between versions isn't as easy as a click of a button. It's pretty time consuming. So the last thing you want to do is move and then regret it. We've got a few posts about the differences between 7.0 and 7.1, and also importantly, the issues that you might face if you plan to move between them. So please check those posts out first if you're not 100% sure what you're getting yourself into. I've linked them below this video. This video today is actually just about how to move, our tips to make it streamlined and faster, and the tools we use to help us do that. Like I said, there's no magic upgrade or move button. A lot of this has to be done manually. Don't get me started on how frustrating that is and why Squarespace hasn't launched anything to help people move between versions, but hopefully this video will simplify things for you. So let's just jump right into it. Okay, so let's get into this. You want to either transfer from 7.0 to 7.1 or vice versa. Now, like I kind of said in the intro, this is a very manual process, so I'm going to break this down into actionable steps. But the thing that's important to note here is that basically you're starting from scratch, okay? So we need to start with a brand new website, and we're going to be copy and pasting a lot of content over. When it comes to things like the blog or your shop, there are certain tools that I recommend using that I'm going to show you how to use to make this a lot easier. But otherwise, it's actually a completely manual process and you're starting from scratch. So if you're planning to completely replicate the design of the site you already have, you're probably going to find that hard because the design and functional differences between 7.0 and 7.1 are different. So unless you know how to replicate that design and you already know how to use the version you are moving towards, then you might want to either scroll through the templates that Squarespace has to offer or purchase a premium template like one of our Squarespace templates to give you a base to get started with. But if you are wanting to replicate your design, just manage your expectations. The editor is a lot different. You'll be able to achieve something similar, but it probably won't be exactly the same. So the first step really is choose your starting point. If you're going to start from scratch, what do you want to start with? Because you can start with the template, come to squarespace.com/templates and have a look at all of the free 7.1 templates to start with. Or if you're going the other way and wanting to go back, scroll to the very bottom of this page and you click looking for templates from an earlier version. This is going to open up the 7.0 templates for you to look through. Please do more research if you're going backwards. So if you're going back to 7.0, as the different templates for 7.0 actually all have completely different functionality. So you're going to be really restricted if you choose the wrong template here. I'm going to link an article below about how to actually choose the right template for 7.0 to start with. Right, but I'm assuming the majority of you are going from 7.0 to 7.1, so I'm going to focus on that mostly today. The steps are going to be really similar for transferring content though, so if you are moving backwards, this tutorial will really help you, but I just recommend doing a lot of research before you choose a new 7.0 template. For 7.1 templates, it's a lot easier because every single 7.1 template has the same functionality, so it doesn't matter what one you choose really because you can edit them all the same. They have the same features. You can achieve a different design with every template you choose. You're not going to be limited by a specific template. So really just choosing your starting point here. Whether you want to go and have a look at our templates, bigcatcreative.com/templates, you can choose a starting point there. And we have so many tutorials that are accompanying the templates. Or if you already have an understanding, we can just choose from this list something that you think is going to work for your business and the website that you want. So if you see something that's kind of close to what you're going for, then definitely start with that. It's going to save you a little bit of time. So I'm going to go for this one here. But you might take a little bit of time to decide what you want, and that's fine. You can pause this video and come back to it at any point. So now we're going to set up our template just like we would. We're starting from scratch, okay? So you're going to put your site title in here. It's going to walk you through some tips on how to use the version you're using. If you don't need those, you can just click close, or you can work through those if you want to. I'm just going to click close for now. Like I said before, if you really want in-depth tutorials, you can invest in one of our Squarespace templates. We do a huge in-depth Squarespace walkthrough about everything you need to know. Or you can just look at free tutorials on YouTube or look at the Squarespace support. There's so many tools out there for you to learn either 7.0 or 7.1. Okay, so this is our blank slate and we're wanting to move our website to here. So the first thing we want to do is start building it out. We're going to get everything ready, transferred over, and the design finalized before we do any sort of transferring of your website domain or subscription. Now, you should be able to have at least a 2-week free trial on this website, and that should be enough time for you to get everything transferred over. If it's not, you can always reach out to Squarespace and ask them to extend your trial, and usually they're really happy to do that because you don't really want to be paying for 2 website subscriptions at the same time. So if you just tell them you're working on moving your site over to the different version and you need a little bit more time, usually they'll extend that free trial for you so you have more time to work on it in the back end. So the main topics I'm going to cover here are how to transfer over regular pages, how to transfer over blogs, how to transfer over shops, and how to transfer galleries of images. The first thing is pages, and I'll touch on that now, but I'm not going to get too in-depth into pages because generally transferring over pages is going to require you to just build them from scratch. So I have this template here. This is actually one of our 7.0 templates, but I'm going to pretend like this is my 7.0 website and I'm transferring this over. There is a special tool that you can use to transfer regular pages, but generally it's not going to work very well. Like I mentioned before, the functions between 7.0 and 7.1 are so different. The page structures, the way you build a page, that transferring over a page design is nearly pointless. You're actually better just to design from scratch and copy and paste any words that you want over. And I guess look at this as a way to sort of refresh your copy or audit anything that maybe you haven't in a while, right? So this first step of adding in your pages is just very, very manual, and you'll just need to add new pages, design new pages, and copy and paste over your content. This is the best time to probably learn how to use Squarespace 7.1 or 7.0, depending on which way you're going, if you haven't learned how to use them already. Because if you know how to use the version you're currently on, there's definitely going to be a lot of relearning for the new version that you're using. So look at this as a bit of a learning curve. Doing those pages manually, while it's a little bit painful, you are going to learn lots and you're going to know how to use your website. I'm not going to jump into the how-to of pages today because that is a whole other tutorial on how to use Squarespace. But just go ahead and dive in, see how far you get, use Google, use the Squarespace tutorials, use our YouTube channel, and start playing around with the new editor that you're working in and just manually build those pages out. Now, one very, very important thing that you need to keep in mind during this whole transfer process, and you're going to hear me talk a lot about this, is to make sure that you've copied over your URL slugs in the same way that they are on your original website. So if you're wondering what a URL slug is, basically if we go into pages, you can open up any page, any collection, any collection item like a blog post or a portfolio item or anything like that. Wherever you see this little cog icon, it's going to open up settings for that individual page or collection or item. And you're always going to be able to find the URL slug. So the slug is basically the link to your page. So let's just say this is an about page. For example, the URL would be www.bigcatcreative.com/about. So the /about is the slug, and we need to be consistently paying attention to these throughout the whole process So not only paying attention to them while we work through, but also double checking them at the very end of the process. And I'll touch on that at the end. But it's really important to get these right and make sure that the new slugs are the same as the existing site slugs, because if you change your slugs or you accidentally get them wrong, any links around the internet anywhere that linked to the pages on your existing site will break when you transfer over to the new site. But if we map these all and make sure they're the same, any links around the internet anywhere, say Google, Pinterest, any links that anyone shared on their blogs or on their websites to your site, if the URL slugs are the same as your existing/old site, people are just going to go straight to the new site, to the page that has the same slug. If the slugs are the same, there's going to be no problem with people visiting old links because they're just going to be redirected to your new site. So I'll touch on this again when we go through blogs, when we go through portfolios, etc. But if you're working on your pages now and you're finishing up the designs for each page, make sure you map these URL slugs. So for example, if I was finished designing the About page on my new site, so let's say this is the final design here, I'm going to go ahead and click on the settings, so this little cog icon for the About page, and just make sure the slug is the same. So I'll compare it with my old one, /about, great, it's the same, I don't need to do anything. If it was different, all you need to do is enter in the new slug here, you just type it in and you click save on the settings. So make sure you do that with every page. Keep that in mind as we work through this whole process. Now, let's jump into transferring collection content. So a collection is anything like a blog, gallery, a portfolio page. There's lots of different collection type pages. So when you actually go to add a page, you can see that you could just have the regular page types and then you have the category collections. So gallery, store, blog, events, album, index. There's slightly different options over on 7.1. Blog, store, portfolio, events, videos. So the one tool that's going to make transferring collection pages so much easier is Squarespace Websites Tools Extension Pro. It is a very long name, but it is super popular in the Squarespace community for this exact purpose, transferring pages between websites and transferring collections between websites. So I wouldn't generally use it for pages if you're changing versions because, like I said, changing pages is a little bit pointless because the crossover, it just won't work. You're better off to just rebuild and paste in your copy. But if you are wanting to transfer between the same version for some reason and you want to copy a page over from a 7.1 site to another 7.1 site, this extension is excellent for that, but for going between the different versions, it's also really great for collections. So commonly we get people with really big blogs that are dreading manually redoing their blog on a new site. And I always tell them to use this extension. It's crazy to think people with hundreds of blog posts are manually building them in a new site. That is so much work. And this tool will resolve that for you all, which is great. So it does cost. I'm not sure what kind of plans they've got at the moment, but if you're only using it to transfer content, you don't actually need the Pro extension. I believe you can just use the Lite extension because you can copy all of the pages. The Pro is for advanced features, generally for other designers and Squarespace developers. But for $70 a year, depending on how much content you have to transfer, I think $70 is so worth it for how much time this could potentially save you, depending on how much content you've got. So I think if you have over probably 15 blog posts, this will be worth it to save you the time. Just go to this website here. I'll link it below the video. Sign up. Follow the instructions to download the extension into your Chrome browser. So you do need to be using Google Chrome browser. You should be using Google Chrome browser anyway because it is what Squarespace recommends. So make sure you download Google Chrome, download the extension. So you might need to pause this video and come back and then I'll show you actually how to implement this. And once you've downloaded it, it should be up here in your Chrome toolbar. It'll look something like this. When you click on it, it'll probably prompt you to log in if you're not already logged in. So go ahead and log in, and then you'll get a screen that looks something like this. If you are on the light plan, it might be a little bit less detailed. You might have less options, but that's okay. You will still have the options that you need. And you'll want to click Enable Extension down the bottom, and this will actually refresh your websites. So just make sure it's enabled everywhere. And I'm going to show you how you can use it to transfer a blog so easily. Now, if you do have a very big blog, say over 100 posts, this might take a while because it's actually copying all of the data from your blog posts, like all of the text, all of the images, the categories, pretty much all of the information. So that can actually be quite a lot of information. So just be prepared to potentially wait up to an hour if you do have a lot of posts. I'm going to just show you on a blog where I've only got 3 posts. In this case, I wouldn't even use this tool. I would just do them manually because it would probably not take too long to do them manually. But just for the example today, I'm going to do it on this blog. So once you have it enabled, make sure you're in the Pages panel of your existing site. And you'll want to go to the blog that you want to copy. Hover over the page and you'll see this black arrow on the right-hand side. Then click Get Collection Data. Okay, so that was very, very fast, but yours might take a bit longer than that. So just press OK. And now basically you can see your little extension says data up here. And that basically means that it's holding on to that blog data. And we can come over to our new site, click up into the extension, and then click Create from Data. And then it will say here, so you want to create a blog collection in the main navigation? Sure. Select the collection type you need. So it's going to give us a few different options because, like I said, the difference between 7.1 and 7.0, there's a lot of differences there. And the blog layouts are different between the two platforms. This doesn't actually really matter what you choose because we can so easily go in and change this. I'm going to click Basic Grid Blog, but I can show you how to change it as well. So click Confirm, and then it's going to sit here and duplicate all of the data. Now, this is how long it takes for 3 posts, so you can imagine how long it might take for 100 or 200 posts. But it is a lot faster than doing it yourself. Okay, so now you can see in my new 7.1 site, I have this new blog. And if we compare it to my previous blog, you can see that it's copied over each of the posts. It's got their names, their thumbnail images. Clearly, it looks a little bit different, but that's okay. That's to be expected. If you click into the blog, you'll see the blog posts here, much the same as you can see them in 7.0. It will even carry over the same date. So these are all the way back from 2018. It should even copy over the same categories. So if we open up the settings and go into options, categories, this one has the social media category on it, which it also does over in 7.1. The blog editor, again, is very different in 7.1 versus 7.0. So that's just something to keep in mind, but you're going to keep finding that throughout this whole process is the differences between 7.0 and 7.1 are vast, and you'll just have to do a bit of relearning. But overall, this does a really great job of transferring blog posts, and it's an incredible tool if you have a ton of blog posts. I will say, though, that it is really important for you to still double check everything on each post. And I know that sounds painful. 99% of the time, things will transfer over well and they'll look good and right and everything will look the same. But 1% of the time, some things might be broken, some images might be broken, or if you had blocks within a blog post that were connected to other areas in your previous site. For example, if you had a summary block in your original blog that was connected to something on this site, then it's going to be broken within this site. So you'll have to reconnect that or change it. So it's still worth going through and checking everything. I think just having a quick squiz over, making sure everything looks okay, but that is how you use that tool to transfer blog posts. The biggest and actually probably the most important thing in this whole process to make sure you're not breaking any links. So by that I mean, if your existing blog on your existing site is bigcatcreative.com/blog, and I can check that by going into my blog page settings and then having a look to see what the URL slug is. And it is just /blog. Okay, so if that is the URL slug for this blog, it's very important for us to make sure that this is going to be the URL slug for the new site. So for blogs, you'll want to check the main blog slug, and you'll want to check the individual blog slug as well. So if you click edit on blog post 3, and we go into the options tab, you can see the post URL slug is blog-post-3. Now, when you use the Squarespace Websites Tools extension, it should do a really good job of keeping those URLs the same. It's probably worth a quick check like it is with anything, but let's have a quick look within the blog post 3 settings. And if we scroll down, we can see the post URL is blog-post-3. So that part is correct. It's actually kept that blog post URL, which is going to make things so much easier for us. We don't have to manually change those. Okay, so now the main blog has the same URL slug as our original or existing main blog, and each blog post should match up to our existing or previous site blog post too. So now you can see /blog/blog post 3 /blog/blog post 3. So that's what we want to achieve throughout our whole blog and our whole site. We want to be constantly mapping those URLs and making sure they're the same. And before we finalize anything, we definitely want to make sure we double check as well. So you'll hear me say that a lot through this process. The one other thing I was going to mention too is going back to the main blog page. When we originally chose that layout, when it gave us all of those different options, and I chose the basic grid blog, you can adjust your blog post layout by clicking edit on the page, edit section, and you can see you have those same options here it gave us originally. So I'm not going to jump into how to design your blog because this video is going to be way too long if I get into how to actually design. But I'm pretty sure we have a video on how to start a blog in Squarespace 7.1. So I'll link that below. That will jump into all the design things. I just wanted to circle back to this list here. And this basically just edits how your posts look in your blog. So you can play around with that to make it the same or different to how it looked on your existing site. Okay, so that is blog all done. So now let me show you quickly how to transfer a shop. Essentially, you're going to follow the exact same method that we just followed. I'm going to jump over to my original site, make sure my extension is enabled. And I do have this little test store on here. Again, it's just an example. If I only had 3 products, I probably wouldn't go through the effort of using this tool. I'd probably just manually upload. If you're not using the tool, you can also export your products as a CSV. So I'll quickly show you how to do that after I show you how to use this tool. But it's the same thing. So you hover over, you get that collection data, wait until it says it's ready to go, hop back over to the new site, click on the extension and click Create from Data. Confirm. Cool, so we can go have a look at the store. And it's going to be set up in a template. So it's got this sort of like Squarespace demo data in it that is totally normal. You can go in there and edit or remove that. And it'll just transfer over your products just as they were on your site. Now, the one big thing that it doesn't transfer over is the actual product itself. So you'll need to go through, and if you have digital products, you'll need to re-upload those products. And you'll also just want to check through all of the other settings for your products and make sure those are the same. So it's going to do majority of the work, but still it's worth going through and checking each of them just like we did with the blog. And if you have digital products, re-uploading those products. So you just click on the 3 dots, click edit, And you're going to have all of your information for your product here. So the name, description, images. So you'll want to play around with your inventory here depending on what type of products you have, and just check that you don't need to upload another file or you don't need to restock or whatever you have for your inventory. Check your price. Check the categories. Those should come over fine. And also the tags. Check your visibility. And super importantly, check those URL slugs again. So this is probably the most important thing aside from actually uploading the actual product inventory. Check the URL slugs. So what you want to do is come down to this marketing section. I'm not sure why it's under marketing, but right now it is. And then SEO and URL, and then click edit and check your URL here. So this should come over pretty accurately, just like the blog post, but again, it's worth checking. You will notice that the actual store URL probably isn't correct. So I'm going to open up what I see here in 7.1, and you'll see this says store-1. Okay, so that's my URL for my 7.0 store. In 7.0, you'll see it says store-1/p/. So first, let's ignore the fact that it says /p. That's something that we're going to dive into next because that's really important. But first, let's focus on the slug before the /p. At the moment, mine are actually the same, store-1, which is great. But if yours are not the same, again, we want to make sure they are. So let me quickly show you how to actually change the main store slug. Right now, we're looking at the product slug. So if we're trying to do the main store slug, what we want to do is just leave the product or save it if you have been making changes. And then you can either click on the cog up here, which is going to open up the shop settings. Or if you go back, you'll find that cog there. If you go back again, you're going to find it next to your store page. So lots of places you can find it. It's going to open up the store settings. Click on General. And then under URL slug, you'll see this is where to change it. So if you did need to change the actual store slug to match up with your existing or old site, this is where you do that. So change it and then click Save in the top left. But let's go back to the product slug now, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that /p. Now, I don't know why they introduced this in 7.1, but every shop product in 7.1 has to have this P in front of it. I think it stands for product. I don't know why they did that, but it does make things a little bit trickier because it's obviously so important for us to have the same URLs. So because of this issue, we not only have to check and make sure all of these slugs are right, we're going to need to set up URL redirects for our shop so that when people land on, say, bigcatcreative.com/store-1, they're going to be redirected to bigcatcreative.com/store-1/p because we don't actually have a choice of whether we can include that P or not. It's something that Squarespace has made compulsory for us for some reason. So I'll show you how to set up those URL redirects, but as long as you've set this up correctly and checked all of your store items, you're pretty much good to go. You just need to add in those redirects. Okay, so I'm going to just save this. Let's assume that you've checked these all and you're all good to go with your shop. We're going to go back to the main menu. We're going to go to Settings. And they have been moving these settings around a lot, so this might be in a different spot, okay? So just bear with me here. Squarespace has been changing a lot of things. At the moment, it's under Website, Developer Tools, and then URL Mappings. If you can't find it there, all you need to do is hit the / key on your keyboard and search for URL Mappings, and it will just take you straight there. This is what you're going to see, and we want to create URL mappings for every single product you have. So the first thing we need to know is the slug for our original site. So I'm actually just going to copy that and paste it in. And then we need to know the slugs for each product. Now, if you have physical products or service products, you can actually export all of your products if that's going to be easier for you. to see a list, it's going to export all of your products to a CSV. If you're using digital products, you can't actually do this. For some reason, you can't export digital products or import digital products. So you actually will just have to go through and view all of the URLs of your products and copy and paste them over. So first, let's tackle this like we're using digital products. And then next up, I will show you how to export your products if you're using physical or service products. So not so many options if you're using digital products, and we have to manually do this. So let's say this is my slug for the URL redirect I want to create. Come to your new site, paste that afterwards. So now you have the original product URL. So this is the original URL that people might have access to from around the internet. If they've got a link to this anywhere, they're going to go to this product and they're going to be redirected to your new product. So you can actually follow the structure down here, which makes it quite easy as well. So basically you've got to put in this little arrow, space, little arrow, space, and then the new URL. So we know our new URL is going to be the same apart from that extra P that's in there. So this is exactly how you would do it. Old URL for the product to the new URL. If you wanted to at any point, you can change this new URL slug now that we have to redirect anyway. But if you're happy with the structure, I would recommend just keeping them the same. If you've used the tool, they're going to come over the same. So that is most of it. And then at the end, you need to type in 301. Okay, so if you forget this, the instructions are down here as well. There's an example right here, and you can just copy and paste this if you want to. But 301 basically means that this is a permanent change. And so Google will see this redirect and say, okay, I know that this is a redirect that's lasting now, and it will index pages accordingly. There's a different type of redirect, a 302 redirect, and that's just a temporary redirect. But in this case, it's a permanent thing, and we want Google to know that it's permanent. So you'll need to do one of these for every single one of your products, okay? The easiest way to do it is just kind of just copy what you've already done, press enter, and just sort of stack them up. So let's say our product was called Test Product 1. And we want it to redirect to test product 1, just like that. So you could do them all this way. The most annoying thing is knowing all of your URL slugs and having them listed out so you can come in here and type them in. And you won't really be able to test this until this site goes live. And then you'll be able to go to the old URL and see if it actually redirects you to the new URL. Which, if you've done this correctly, it definitely will. You shouldn't have any problems, but you won't actually be able to test this properly until you launch your site. So just make sure you do that once you launch. Now, let's quickly go back to this 7.0 site, and I'll show you if you do have physical products, how you can export those. Okay, I just quickly added an example physical product to this shop. Let's say your shop is full of services or physical products. You just want to go back to the main menu. Click on Commerce. We want to find Inventory. It's at the top. Then we can click Export All, or you can just select the ones you want to export. It's going to instantly download a CSV, which you can open. And then from that CSV, you'll see the product URL. Okay, so if you did have a bunch of physical products and you wanted to just grab all of the URL slugs from each of those products, it might be easiest for you to export the CSV and just copy them from there. And then from there, you can just add them to your URL mappings. And that's probably going to be quite a bit faster than going into each individual product and checking what the URL is. Okay, so I think that explains how to export and import your products to your new website. Again, just make sure to double check everything and definitely double check those slugs. And then for products specifically, we need to set up those URL redirects. We don't have to do those for any other pages or blogs or anything. It's just the store, so don't worry. You don't have to do that for every single page. It's just because of that silly /p feature. But once you've done all that, you are done. So your store is imported and your store is good to go. Let's get into galleries. Galleries are a little bit tricky because the gallery feature in 7.0 doesn't really translate to anything in 7.1. There's not a gallery collection like there is in 7.0. So if you do have a gallery or multiple galleries, I just want to present a few different options of how you could add these into 7.1 and the different options for galleries in 7.1 basically. So I'm going to go over to Squarespace 7.1, and the way you set this up really depends on how you want your gallery to look. So the different options are the portfolio feature. So a portfolio is basically just a collection of gallery pages. So it works quite similarly to the galleries you'll find in 7.0, but it's not exactly the same. So I'm just going to choose that basic grid layout, and I'll just quickly show you how it works. We have a whole video on how to use this feature, so I'll definitely link that below too if you're interested in using the portfolio collection feature. But basically, it kind of is like a blog. You can choose different layouts for this. You have your different projects listed here in the sidebar, and you can see them here in this grid. And then you can click into the project and it's going to open another page. This is basically just a standard page where you can add any elements to the page. So portfolios, there's really nothing that special about them. They're pretty much just a collection of separate project pages that display nicely within a page. And they're really not that much different from blogs. The main thing that is different between a blog and a portfolio collection is that the actual post or project itself is a regular page. So in 7.1 and in 7.0, a blog page is generally quite restricted in what you can add to it. So it doesn't have sections, it just has simple text and blocks. Whereas in these project pages, you can add anything like you would on a regular page. So gallery sections, as many sections as you like, and all the different blocks. And so the design of a project page is much more advanced than what you get on a blog post. But apart from that, the structure is very similar. So you could use this for your gallery depending on how you like your images displayed. If you have different projects to display, this is a really good idea. You can also still use blog posts. We actually have a whole post breaking down all the different ways that you can add and display portfolios around your site. So I'll link that below as well if you want to dive into that. It kind of goes into these a bit deeper. Pretty much there's so many different ways you can have a portfolio or a gallery on your site. So we've just listed some of the most popular ways. So this is included, but depending on how you had your gallery displayed, maybe you just want a page with images. In that case, what you can do is you can just click a new blank page. And every page, including the separate projects within the portfolio page, can have gallery sections. So we don't have gallery collections in Squarespace 7.1, but we do have gallery sections, and these are really cool. So if you add a section, for some reason, Squarespace has made these gallery sections really hard to find. You used to be able to click gallery in this sidebar, but now you have to look for images and then choose one of these ones that look like something like a gallery. And usually they have this little eye hovering over them. So you can see lots of different gallery styles here. If you scroll down, these are just regular sections and regular image blocks. But at the top, the ones with these little eyes are actually gallery sections. So these give you really advanced ways to show your images. So instead of the regular edit section on the section, you've got edit gallery. And you can actually upload all of your images, kind of similarly to what you would be looking at here, where you work with all of your images inside of gallery. So instead of the gallery collection page, it's a gallery section on a regular page. But if you just had a simple gallery and you didn't want those extra projects that people needed to click through on, this is a really good option. And you can also add multiple gallery sections to the same page. You can play around with all of the settings. If you want to learn more about gallery sections, we'll put a link below so you can get the full scope on what's possible with the gallery sections. But those are kind of your two main options for creating something comparable to your gallery page in 7.0. Now you're probably thinking, okay, well, how do I transfer all the images over? Because that's really what I want to know about. So unfortunately, as far as I know, this tool doesn't copy your gallery over into a gallery. But Squarespace 7.1 has recently introduced the asset library, which is going to make uploading images to your galleries actually really easy. So if you do have a lot of galleries, what I would do is I would first upload them into your asset library. So if you come into the main menu, click on Asset Library, you're going to see all of the photos that have been uploaded to your site, whether those are on your blog or anywhere else. And you can actually sort these all with folders, which I highly recommend. It's super handy just to get all of your images organized. So if you did have a gallery and you had lots of photos on your computer that you wanted to upload, you could create a folder, and then maybe you could create another folder for different projects. And you can just bulk upload straight into your asset library. So I'm just double clicking there. So let's just say you had a bunch of photos you wanted to upload. You can just click and drag them from your files and bulk upload them all at once. I think there is a limit on how many files you can upload at once, but it's pretty big. So if you did have hundreds of photos, this would be a lot easier just doing it here first. And then you could go into either your gallery page that you just created or your portfolio page. And then wherever you want to upload the images, go to that gallery section, remove any of the demo content, and then you can actually bulk upload the images by clicking the plus, search images, go into the folders you just created, highlight and select all the images you want to upload, and click add. So while I don't actually have a tool for you to transfer images from one site to the other, if you do have your photos organized on your computer pretty well, this is actually really fast to do. It didn't used to be like this. This whole asset library has really made things a lot faster on Squarespace. So definitely use that to your advantage. Okay, so we've talked about how to move over pages, blogs, shops, galleries. That's pretty much all the main stuff. If there's anything else and you've got that tool, you can always try to move it. If it doesn't work, basically it needs to be done manually. So hopefully that gave you a really good understanding of all of the different elements that need to be moved over and how each of those get moved over and how actually manual this process is. But it also isn't that time consuming, especially when you use this amazing Chrome extension. It's going to really speed things up. I still think that the most time consuming part about it will be redesigning your site. And if you were wanting to do that anyway, and you're using this move and you're kind of combining the change from 7.0 to 7.1 and the redesign at the same time, this is actually a really good time to move because you're going to be spending a lot of time adjusting things anyway. You might as well start with a fresh template. Now, before you publish any site, I highly recommend going through our final launch checklist. So going through a final launch checklist, either our one that comes with our Squarespace templates, or I believe Squarespace provides one as well. We'll link it below if they do. It's basically just a final run of all URL checks, checking all your buttons, checking all your links, making sure that nothing will be broken from your old site to your new site, filling in all of your SEO settings. This is the case whether you're switching versions or not. You always should do this when you are launching a new site or relaunching your existing site. There's just so many of those final checks that you don't want to miss. So really important step here. And I'm not going to go into all the details because again, this video is already way too long and that will be really long as well. So I'll link something down below. Your final launch checklist. Definitely don't miss this step. Otherwise, you'll probably pay for it with search engine optimization problems or link problems and stuff like that. So definitely do that. And then the final step, when you're ready to publish, is actually publish it. So this part's really fun and exciting. It's basically just like publishing any new site on Squarespace, but there's a few different things to it. So basically we're going to publish this site. You know, it's all done. It's ready to publish. We're going to make it live to the world and we're going to sign up for a subscription. So that's step one. We want to make sure this site is live and paid for before we try and make the switch. And by make the switch, I mean, we're going to move your URL or domain name from your old site to your new site. So let's just say the domain name for this site is bigcatcreative.com. I want to move that to this site. And that step is actually super easy if your domain name is with Squarespace. Usually it's pretty fast. If your domain is hosted with someone else, it can take a little bit longer, but it shouldn't be that hard either. But to mitigate any issues of the domain switch taking a bit of time, we just make sure we leave both of the sites live for at least a few days until the switch is made. So this site is going to be on a full subscription and this site is going to be on a full subscription just for a few days while we make that transfer. Because if we go and upgrade this site and downgrade the old site and the transfer hasn't really happened yet, it might look like your website's down or whatever. Basically, we just need to keep them both live until we're sure the transfer of the domain has been completed. So first step, publishing the site. Super easy. Go back to the main menu, click on your settings, and we're going to try and find site availability. Again, with the settings panel, Squarespace has been moving it around a ton lately, so it might not be here. If you can't find it, just hit / on your keyboard and type in site availability, and that's really the easiest way to get to it. Here you'll see upgrade to publish. Click on that, and you'll need to select your plan. So select whatever plan you think you need and upgrade your site. Super easy. This can be done within about 2 minutes. Then we're going to go back to our existing site, and we're going to go over to settings, and we're going to click on domains. If you can't find it in the settings, just click /, type in domains, and that's going to open up our domain settings. Okay, so I'm actually going to show you this on our main website because this example one doesn't even have a real domain. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the domain that I want to move. So choose your domain from the list. Scroll to the bottom and click Move Domain to another site. Now, this button will only be here if you've got your URL or domain name through Squarespace. This makes it really, really easy to just choose the next website you want to add the domain to. Of course, you would choose your new website. You just choose it from your list of websites in your dashboard, and you're good to go. From there, if you've done that, it should take between 24 and 72 hours. Sometimes it's faster than that, but again, like I said, just leave that existing site up and active until you're 100% sure that it is moved. I would give it at least 72 hours because even if it looks like it's moved on your end, sometimes it looks a little bit different for other people and things can get a little bit weird. So just leave the subscription open for about 72 hours and it's that easy to move a domain. So as complicated as Squarespace has made this whole transfer process, at least it's very easy to move domains from site to site. Now, if you are working with a third-party domain, you don't have your domain purchased through Squarespace, I can't actually show you a perfect example of that because I don't have any, but you click on the domain that you want to move. And then I think down the bottom here, it'll say disconnect domain. So what you're doing is disconnecting it from your existing site, and then we're going to go into the new site and reconnect it. So disconnect the domain from this site. Then you're going to come over to the new site, click on domains again, click use a domain I own, enter in the name of your domain, and then connect it. So it does say here a transfer is recommended, but that's totally up to you. If you did want to transfer your domain to Squarespace, this probably is a good time to do it. But basically that means that Squarespace is going to host your domain instead of where it's hosted currently. So the only reason that you'd move it is just to make things a little bit easier and just to use less different programs and softwares. But if you are getting, say, a really good deal on the price of your domain from somewhere else, or if you have a preference for where you like your domain to be hosted, then just connecting it is fine and connecting it is faster. The transfer process definitely takes a little bit more time. If you wanted to do it, this is a good time to do it. Just click transfer and follow all of the instructions. They actually generally have really good instructions for how to transfer your domain. And if you get stuck, Squarespace support will definitely help you. They've been really helpful with that for me in the past. Or you can just go ahead and connect. And connecting it is just going to link your website up with it where it is hosted currently. Now, when you click connect, it'll either ask you where your domain is hosted, your domain provider from a drop-down menu, or it'll just instantly recognize where it is from. This one obviously happens to be from GoDaddy, and it's recognized that instantly. But if you just choose your provider, then continue through this process. Generally, it's all pretty automatic and you don't have to do anything very manually. and it will just connect it for you, which is great. If you're using a domain provider that doesn't have an automatic connection process, and it requires you to go in and update the CNAME records of your domain, I'm going to link some information below about how to do that. Generally, it's a little bit different with every provider, but also you can message your provider and ask if they can help as well. So if you do have to do that manually, give yourself a little bit of time to figure that out, but no stress because you haven't unsubscribed the site. Nobody knows what's going on in the back end, and you can take as long as you need to figure this stuff out. Though it isn't too hard and it shouldn't take too long, and I'll definitely link those extra instructions below for those of you who do need to manually change your CNAME records or any records in your domain provider. I will also include information about how to transfer your domain if you maybe wanted to do that instead to make this process a little bit easier in the future. So generally that takes the same amount of time, about 24 to 72 hours. But again, just leave that old subscription open and eventually everyone will be redirected to your new site. Okay, so let's say it's been 72 hours. Our new site is looking good. When we go to our URL, the new site shows up. Everything seems to be working correctly. So now we can actually cancel this old subscription. So just go into your site, go into settings, try to find billing. Again, if you can't find it, hit / on the keyboard, type in billing, and that's going to bring up your billing information. And here you should be able to unsubscribe. This one isn't actually subscribed, but somewhere in here you should be able to cancel your subscription. Now, if you did have a subscription that you had prepaid for a year and you still had quite a bit of time left on that, it's worth reaching out to Squarespace and asking them for a prorated refund. In my experience, they give these out 100% of the time if you are moving from one Squarespace version to a different Squarespace version, because realistically, if they didn't, you'd be paying for 2 subscriptions. And in my opinion, it's their fault because they haven't developed a way to move a subscription from one site to the next. It's so silly. I wish you could just transfer it, but you can't. And thankfully, Squarespace recognized that. And if you reach out to them and say, hey, I've just moved my subscription to this site, can you please refund me for the time remaining I had on this site that I've just canceled? In my experience, they're happy to do that. So definitely it's worth reaching out to them to get some money back on your subscription if you had prepaid it for more than a month. So that is it. That was such a long video. I hope it was helpful for you to not only see what's required for this process, but maybe you actually followed along and were transferring your site. If so, I hope it all went well. And if you've got any questions about this process or our Squarespace templates and how that can actually help with the process, or even if you want someone to assist you through this process, we can offer that as well. So just flick us a message or comment and we'll be happy to help. Okay, guys, thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed that video and learned something new. If you did, definitely check out this video because you'll probably enjoy that one too. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We put out new videos pretty much every week. So I will see you in the next one.